Every day, we can experience a full range of emotions, from joy to grief, peace, frustration, and everything in between.
But we're still expected to be an A player at work, be a good partner, to parent children, take care of our animals, and have food on the table, even in the throes of grief. So how the hell are we supposed to do it all?
On the Human Sessions podcast, we'll guide you through strategies for being your authentic self in every part of your life, no matter which emotions are in the driver's seat that day. We'll talk about how human design, energy, and Reiki can all be useful tools for showing up and showing up well.
And if we lost you at the word energy, I promise you will walk away from every episode with tactical tips to feel more like yourself.
I'm Rachel Hatterberg-Walt, human energetics expert and Reiki master.
And I'm Val Marini, grief and trauma specialist and energy healer. This is a no bullshit zone.
This is an anti-perfectionism haven.
This is the Human Sessions podcast. Okay, so today we're going to talk about rituals. And when we're saying that, it's not the macro level. You know, we touched a lot on like holiday rituals and traditions and kind of external expectations, which is going to factor into every routine that we have. However, today we're going to talk a little bit more about personal rituals, routines, how we show up, sometimes the way that we resource ourselves when we know that we're in a cycle or a pattern to break it. Sometimes we are in a cycle or a pattern that we need to break, and we are enabling maybe an unhelpful ritual or unhelpful routine, which is a little bit more of like our dependency and reaching out for anything that is going to keep our nervous system in the same loop, which is either dysregulation or regulation. So
When I think about our rituals as the tools in my toolbox or in my tool belt. So I keep my rituals in a fluid form. I think of them as when I'm regulated and I'm just trying to maintain a nice well-being, a nice baseline, a nice high vibe, if you will. I have a certain ones that I'll go to, but I think of it as like a menu or let me open this box and see what feels right for today versus habitual things that I do every single time. I've talked about many times, my energy is not consistent. And so my tools cannot be consistent or they will be stifling and I will reject them outwardly and completely.
Unsustainable.
It's unsustainable for me.
Yeah.
But some people really love a nice consistent ritual to where they have, one of my clients is like this, they have a lot of mental energy and they're very active. And so they need rituals to be consistent every day. So it's not taxing on their already very active system. So consistency is their friend there, and to have something that feels good to them every day until it doesn't, and then they have the freedom to change feels really nice too. And your human design can inform that. And you probably know that to be true as well if you've looked at your rhythms and patterns and routines in your life before. Do you have one that you kind of is a good old faithful ritual that you love to tap into no matter the circumstance?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I would say like day-to-day life, and we've talked about this, my morning routine is the most important to me because I like to get up early. I want to have grounding before I do anything. So I don't like it to be rushed. I don't like to be late. I'm not like going to jump out of bed and like go immediately do something. I need that quiet time, that reset time. It's my favorite time of the day. And I would say that certainly evolved. Like at first it was find a way to go to sleep earlier so that I could get up early to create that space. And then I had to like kind of figure out, and to your point, like what menu of things worked for me. And in the beginning, I think it looked a lot like doom scrolling, but I was awake and I made it to my Pilates class because I was trying to go in the mornings. And that became a stable foundation. And so from that, I have now evolved out of doom scrolling. I use that time for productive things that I would say productive lowercase p. It's whatever I need that day. Sometimes it's sitting with Winston on the couch. Sometimes it is me listening to this podcast and like creating the reel for social media because that's checking something off my list, but it's also something that's like resources and feeds me. But I would say when I'm in, let's take time of day and like that sort of routine out. if I am in grief or if I'm feeling like I know there's an emotion rising up, whatever it is, if I can feel that, there's been no external event, but like I'm in a particular mood and I'm not feeling very grounded, if I know that my nervous system is not regulated. So I can usually tell that by the cadence that I'm talking.
Mm.
And I can notice it at work. If something happens in a meeting or I receive an email, whatever it is, like I'll feel that energy spin happen. And I'm like, okay, I'm like dysregulating right now. I need to ground myself. I will reach for certain things. Sometimes if it's in the middle of the day and I have 30 minutes, I'm going to walk. If I don't have that much time, and I usually have probably max 5 minutes before meetings that are all day long, I'll lay down on the ground and do my like hand over my heart, hand over my belly. There are times where at the end of the day, I'm like energy done.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not in a place where I want to sit in a bath because that would be too stagnant, too griefy. And I've had moments, I don't want to work out. I've had moments where either working out or trying to be like still and meditative actually just like increases and ramps up
Yeah.
anxiety. And what I do then is like, I will reach for the thing that is, and I don't drink during those moments ever. That's like a rule I have. I'm not a huge drinker on the other side of this healing journey anyway, but if I want a drink and like it's Christmas night and we're having steak and I really just want to have like a nice glass of wine, like I will absolutely allow that for myself. But if I'm sad and alone, that's a no-go.
Mm-hmm.
And I will do, and I think there's like certain ones that are like very popular. Like I will watch New Girl again. Schitt's Creek.
Yeah, it's
Amazing
like emotional
rewatch.
support shows.
Currently for me, it's a Modern Family. I have a lot going on right now. I think the last 4 nights I've needed to like help enabling myself to shut down. And, there's enough seasons in that show that you can kind of ride that out for a while. And I, back when I was really in the healing, and my friend Ashley's going to like totally laugh at this. Practical Magic, How to Be Single, Harry Potter, which is just like a classic because the music will help me go to sleep. So like for me, that's if I'm really in it, especially if I really needed to cry or just was crying, the music in that series, I don't know what it is. It's just like it brings a calm to me and it is the best sleepy time movie to watch.
Yeah.
But I would repeat watch those and they're just like the trusty ones.
Mine was Parenthood. Every time I had a kid, I would watch the entire series of Parenthood.
So good.
So good. It was like funny enough, but sad enough, emotional enough.
It was relatable. Like This
Totally
Is
relatable.
Us. This Is Us is not that for me because it's too emotionally. I remember watching, I think, Sullivan Graham, hopefully I'm saying his name right, but he was Toby in that series, talking about how, some of the feedback and some of the fan commentary that they would get was about like how emotional it made them and, how upsetting it was. And they cried every episode. And he was like, yeah, because we're pulling at something that you're repressing or we're pulling at something that you haven't worked through. And he's like, so maybe that's an invitation to sit with this, which was one of the first times I ever heard that.
I was about to say, I've never
in the media
heard that.
Like, sit with this and ask yourself, like, okay, what is this bringing up? Is there someone I need to call? And like, so he was really looking at the power of that media and the power of that, let's call it like a product or a resource. It's helping you to identify and maybe like kicking the tires a little bit to get you going on like, do you have a family member that you actually really loved and you had like a conflict that separated you and you're feeling deep grief and pain from that? Do you need to reach out to them? Is that somebody that you write the like letter that I'll never send to because they're not a healthy person for you, but you need to get some things off your chest? Or do you just need to sit with this emotion and recognize like, oh, wow, like this has been in me. So I'm going to let this episode I'm going to give myself the permission to cry through this episode. And then maybe that's when you go take the bath with the candles and like the specialty salts and you get to process that emotion. But it's like you were blocking it before and this is the instigator for you to let it flow. And so I do love it for that purpose. It's like the notebook. So if we're talking about rituals, like when do I need to cry? When do I need to process emotion? we just watched the other night for the first time ever for both of us, The Iron Giant.
Oh yeah, you said
I know.
that.
I've like
I
already put
haven't
this on
seen
you.
it.
I couldn't believe I thought I was the only person in the
You're
world who
not.
hadn't seen it. And I think because I was regulated prior to watching it and I've been doing so much processing lately and I'm going through like sort of like annual griefy, also this is my season of grief. I felt it. I mean, I definitely processed the emotions. There was a lot behind it. But 5 or 10 years ago, I would have been laying on the ground sobbing
Yeah.
from that movie. And it's not because it's like a harsh ending. It's not because it's like, oh my God, I've watched things where I'm like, oh my God, why would you even create this? This is so dark. It is so beautiful. It is so just relatable that I will sometimes, or I used to cry about just it was like my empathy was just triggered and I would cry about the suffering and the pain of the world
Mm.
and like the suffering and the pain of like people I had never met. And this is also an animated movie, if you were not aware. It doesn't matter to me. I believe in my head that they're like sentient beings
Yeah.
and that their experience was real. And so, yeah, that's where I'm at. How about you?
Oh, I definitely have. I mean, emotional support shows for sure. Gilmore Girls, I think, is a
Oh,
probably
yeah.
popular one
That's a
out
popular
there.
one.
But Parenthood sticks out as one of those. Schitt's Creek is a great
Yeah.
one. Just something that you resonate deeply and it just hits
Friends.
friends. Yeah, it just
Yeah.
hits a nostalgic moment. It's like comforting for our inner child, but also like current day you and all of those. I definitely do that. And especially, around the Christmas holiday, Christmas movies, I'll,
Hmm.
throw that in if I'm a little stressed with the seasonality of the tasks that are demanded of me. So I definitely do that.
Yeah.
I do a good bit of scrolling, and I can tell now the difference between when I'm trying to soothe and escape and numb versus
Hmm.
when I'm actually igniting creativity, connection, joy,
Yeah.
love. I've been extremely intentional about curating all of my feeds and all of my
Same.
social media around things that bring me inspiration, joy, connectivity, or growth in certain maybe social movements and ideas so it doesn't feel like doom scrolling, even though I
No,
know when I
because,
pick up my phone, it's like numbing.
but it's exactly the same. I'm totally on board with you because it's the same as like the quality of your relationships.
Mm,
Like, are you showing up with people that are talking about other people and like things? And I mean, in the material way, are you showing up and are you having that like parenthood experience where you're meeting with people who are talking about life and you're feeling really connected to them and
right.
they feed you energy? It's a totally, totally different transaction in the same
Well, and
experience.
it's like the elder millennial urge to send memes to your best friend, even though you
Totally.
can't talk all day on the phone. It's like, oh, let me send my typical 3 cat memes to my bestie, and
Yeah.
let me send this mom one to my besties, and so there's an element of I think probably what the social media is enabling you to do, but we don't
Yeah.
often use it for, which is connection, which is social cohesion and
Yeah.
consistency. So I do get some hits off that. And when I was fresh in the ritualistic tools, I would wake up very early, like at 5 in the morning, and really explore all those tools. And it was almost like the rituals were enabling me to grow
Hmm.
my heart and my consciousness. And now that that is more embodied and more integrated into my daily life, like all day
Yeah.
long, I don't feel the dependence on the tools in the morning as I once
Totally.
did. And so I've had a little bit of reckoning with that. Like, am I not showing up for myself because I'm not doing this like laundry
No.
list of meditation, candles, stretching, breath work, journaling, that I like earlier on, 2019, 2020, I was really doing all of that. But I think on a daily basis, in the mornings, I do wake up and I say an energetic blessing of protection over me and my family and the house and my car and just kind of where I'm going that day. I send out a blessing of protection and purpose. And then I will do some scrolling and see who I need to send a meme or two to. And then I've been recently for the past year and a half going to Pure Barre. And what I found there, I use it for intentional mind body connection and also muscle building and flexibility and
Mhm.
strength. And I've found a lot of mindfulness in that. And I use a lot of mindfulness in that. I don't think that's like a blanket experience.
Well, you
I
know that my first
Yes.
business was owning a Pure
And I
Barre,
know you were
and
like,
I found the spiritual bypassing.
yes.
It was more of a like, and there's good sides to this and bad sides to this. It was more of like a cult sort of
Yeah.
societal experience. And listen, that was there for people when they really needed it, and that's a really
Yeah.
beautiful thing.
Well, and it's
But then there was
really,
the unhealthy side of it, and also when you
yeah.
own the business, you have a totally different
Oh,
experience than
being on that side of
everybody
things
else. Yeah.
versus me popping in, popping
Yeah.
out is way different. Um, and it's the whole thing of like, not everything is good or bad. Like, we can't just file
Yeah.
fold things into those categories. I love the way it makes me feel. And I found really cool friends there that are
Mhm.
just Pure Barre friends that we don't feel the need to develop into these long lasting friendships, but we
Yeah.
also care about each other. And,
Yeah.
we know what's going on in each other's lives, but it's not too invasive. It's like a really lovely, like, safe landing place, a really grounding moment in this energy, too, honestly, of like variability and inconsistency and fear and lack. And when you show up there, it's just kind of like, we're going to all do this thing together and we're going to all have a hard time pushing our edges. It's been a really helpful tool for that
Yeah.
too, of like staying in the breath, like yoga does too, like staying
Yeah.
in the breath, staying in the body, pushing my edge towards what my mind thinks I can't do versus what I actually physically can do. And
Yeah.
am I doing that to push myself because I'm pressured to do that? Or am I going to be compassionate with myself today because I am weaker and tired today? So how can I
Yeah.
show up for myself in that environment there? So
Let's come back to like the conversation we were having before about, like I've owned these gyms, and there was a lot of them were during like what I would call like the worst times of my life.
mm,
And also I got into them with like a different reason, purpose than what I ended up experiencing.
hmm
And I learned so much and I matured so much. And we have also evolved so much in,
yeah,
in terms of our thinking about wellness and mental health. But it's, there's definitely that like punishment. Are you punishing yourself or are you giving
right,
yourself a gift?
right,
And I found a ton of punishment in how I trained before. And granted, like I also had like a backlog of history that we haven't probably gotten into with like eating disorders and like family crazy family dynamics on my mom's side where like I don't know that I met a healthy eater in my life until, I mean, I think it was like on my dad's side I met that,
mm,
and it was just this very confusing place to land. And so I had a really hard time for a long time figuring out. And again, it was also like dysregulation and an inability to be intuitive. Like you were either like on one side where it was probably like it felt like overeating or just choosing all the wrong foods, and on the other side of like scarcity and lack and like not health and not nourishing and
yeah,
not fueling. But what you just talked about, it's like the mental approach to how you even show up day over
hmm
day. And when I own them, and also even now, I mean, I go to the same studio almost every day, or I go to the same two studios almost every day. And it's because I actually trust the owners of both those studios.
hmm
They are not driving from that place. It's very inclusive, it's very
hmm
open, there's no pressure. And I think that kind of trickles down through the staff
oh,
in terms
totally.
of,
I mean, that sets the stage, as you know.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
like
like,
how and what are you delivering? And
yeah,
then it enables you to like create that inside of like, when you go in there, are you competing with other people and
yeah,
their bodies? Because you know
yeah,
nothing about them and you have know nothing about what's going on inside of their body. Are you judging yourself and or them based off of these external factors or these expectations or whatever? And if yes, then you're in a bad environment.
well,
Or
and
you're
too,
entering super dysregulated and
yeah,
you need maybe a different resource and
yeah.
modality to help you evolve.
Well, and I think that's the difference because I feel more sovereign
Yeah.
too. Like, there's no Pure Barre coach out there that's going to make me do something I'm not going to do.
Yeah.
Like, you can yell at me if you want. They don't do that.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can make comments, but like I'm still going to make
Yeah.
the choices for my body at that time that I'm going to make. So I'm not as influenced by that, I think, too. But also, I had a lot of judgment going into that because I'm like, I'm in the suburbs of Charlotte, there's a lot of stereotypical like suburban
Yeah.
wife stuff. And I was like, oh, I don't want to go. These suburban moms and like dressed to the nines with makeup and hair done, doing Pure Barre and like their Lulu leggings. Like I had a lot of judgment around that. And when I actually showed up at 6 a.m., I was like, oh, like there's a variety of sizes, a variety of ages, a variety of races, a variety of people in there, working, not working, just like, I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I showed
Yeah.
up and didn't let my judgment like stop me in my tracks too, because it's been a really beautiful community too.
Yeah.
And they do a really great authentic job of creating an authentic community. And you can tell the
Yeah.
difference between like, welcome to PR Bar, we're gonna create community versus like, oh my God, how are you doing? Did you make your flight when you went home for the holidays?
It is location specific. So
yeah.
I mean, it's the same. Like I don't particularly like the culture of the Pure Bars that are in my neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
I go to bar 3.
Mm.
Sarah, who's the owner for the one in Elizabeth, just is this super authentic, leads with love. Like the
Well, that's it,
moment
just,
that
like,
I met her, I was
overflowing.
like, I don't even care what is in this class.
Yeah.
Like I just need, for me, I need the routine. I need to show up somewhere. I want to move with other people.
Mm-hmm.
I want to share that energy. So I want to receive the most positive flow and energy. And I also like have huge respect for how hard that is to
It
deliver.
looks so hard. I'm just like, Lord.
It is a lot of learning, but like
Yeah.
there's sort of like the instructors that show up and like deliver the script. And like, you know what? That might be what you need that day. They're showing up with just like what they have. You're
Yep.
showing up with what you
Well,
have.
and it's so
There's an
meditative too,
exchange.
honestly.
Yeah.
Like I'll leave some of the classes and be like reciting some of the commands of the
Yeah.
different position changes and stuff. So I feel like that's hitting some sort of like meditative itch too of like
think
I can be in the zone.
It's
and, like,
structure that you
feel
want.
my yeah, the structure feels good, so my mind can kind of go offline and my body can just move. And those bar classes enable you to have like really fine-tuned body awareness too. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, when I move my leg this way, it
By a half
activates
inch.
that.
Yeah.
Little movements here and there. It activates certain muscles and whatever. Not to mention, I feel so strong, and I feel like I've been yearning for that, like feeling
Yeah.
strong, feeling for a really long time. And then it changes my brain mapping too. So, like, I'll use it as a chance to have more ritual within the practice of,
Yeah.
like, when we are winding down and we've done our stretches and we're like reaching up, I'm like, I receive all the blessings that are meant for me. And when our arms go down, I'll say, I don't, releasing anything no longer needed
So you're
for
like
me.
my dream client.
Yeah. So like I use it for how I want to use it.
And I had those dream clients where I'm like, oh my God, you can see the gratitude in what they're receiving.
Oh, and like, thank you for my body. I've never done that.
Yeah.
Even in yoga, when they were like, thank your body, I'm like, thanks, body. But like, for some reason in Pure Barre, probably now because I'm in a different consciousness level too, but I'm like, no, really, thank you.
And you're
because
more
this is really
embodied.
hard. Yeah.
When you're, I always want to say disembodied, but when you're dysregulated and you're not embodied, you're not connecting to the movement aspect, and then everything feels awkward and everything. And also, like, usually that's when we get our like kind of imposter syndrome, our self-judgment,
Oh, and
our
yeah,
insecurities.
your
and you're
focus is
looking at
outward
everybody else
instead of
inside.
Yeah, that's true.
But I've also had, and I struggled in yoga, and it could have been the environment. I struggled in yoga. Occasionally I struggled in Pure Barre. This was like the worst for me in HIIT, where
that HIIT stresses me out so much.
Well, I mean, and I owned 3 actually.
So you're like,
of
I
those
should
gyms.
probably do this.
Well, like you can look at some aspect of it of if you're performance training, like you have to kind of do this.
Well, it is really good for your body, right? Like
it's like the same
to a certain
way that,
degree,
like,
if it's actually feeling
CrossFit,
that way.
Not for me. For military and active like service members, absolutely, you must have something like this. So it's like, what are you training for and what do you need?
Yeah.
And so I found that I was so dysregulated for so long, and I like owned all these businesses, and I like secretly kind of hated them on any given day. And it really depended like how I was arriving and who was coaching. Like for me, same. There was a CrossFit gym in our community that like I love the owners and they were so sweet to me, but they called me CrossFit Select because I would go in, I'm like, I'm not doing this program because
Yeah.
that doesn't align to me today. And also like I have these injuries. And so I'm going to go do this thing, which made it pretty impossible for me to be a member. But when I discovered the Pilates method, which is not really Pilates, it's Legree, and I don't even want to give full credit to the method. It was just a shift for me in terms of everything else was like super fast and super rigid. And like I had owned a Pure Barre, and the script for me and just at that time, the culture in the franchise, which I was a little bit alone on, because your staff doesn't really come on that same journey with you in terms of like the day-to-day mechanics of the business and how you manage it and how much it matters, like who their CFO is and who's running it and all of that. And I remember the day that I was like, I gotta get out of this. I was teaching a class, and so this was at Pure Barre, and you're gonna die laughing when I say this. It was like one of those. I remember it was Michael Jackson, "Man in the Mirror" was playing, and I'm like kind of bopping along, and everything is super rhythmic and very precise. And I'm like, all right, I want you to like heels together, toes apart, rise up onto your highest tippy toes. And I was like, saw my eyes in the mirror and was like,
What am I
it was
doing?
like I was an out of body experience where I was like, what are you doing? This is not remotely authentic to you. And it's true. My personality, no.
Yeah.
In later
Yeah,
years.
I cannot see you
In later years.
Pure coaching.
But like I could do it because
yeah, you can. You even had the lingo
on.
still right there.
Well, because years later, I then owned an Exhale, and we took our teachers through a different training, and it was much more intuitive. And I coached the way that I wanted to coach. And I designed all the programs the way that I wanted to. And I'm like, if you know me, you're going to immediately dissociate from the experience if I start speaking like that.
Right.
Because I have like more of a grounding sort of voice.
Well,
for hook or for crook,
but also too, you're a manifesting generator. So it also equally makes sense that you had to own all those variety of gyms and put yourself in that experience before you're like, oh yeah, like we're done with this path. I've taken what I need to take. We're going to go.
But it was also in the Real Man Gen cycle of like almost ADHD where I'm like this one, this one, ping pong. They were so different. And then they were all had this like intensity driver. And so when I found Legree, which is sort of like a mix between Pilates and strength training and some like bodybuilding principles, it wasn't about the method per se. It's not about like the movements. Like the movements are functional movements.
Yeah.
You do them in many different practices. A lot of it comes from yoga. A lot of it comes from Pilates. But for me, what the difference was it was very, it wasn't just breath and alignment. There was like a real strength. And we talked about this in one of the last episodes of like how you break down the muscle to repair and build strength. And it is the entire concept of this is that you're not using momentum. Everything is so slow. And the entire point is to move as slow as you possibly can. And you want that shake to happen. So that is similar to Pure Barre, but you're doing full functional movements. And our tendency, and this is physical and it is emotional and it is mental, when we hit resistance, when we hit fatigue, when we hit something that feels less stable than what we've known and less stable than that like pullback moment, we want to stop.
Yeah.
And so learning to push through that and the fact that like, no, that's exactly the point of this.
Well, that practice in Pure Barre has helped me so much.
I want to come to fatigue.
Yes. The balance aspect too.
Well, in Pure Barre, when I would get new clients and you put them in the like right posturing and they start to shake, they immediately stand up. That's like, and that's our basic instinct. Oh, yeah. It's like, oh, I'm going to reject this. Oh, I don't want to deal with that. That's too hard. That's too emotional. This is too stressful. And so when I was going through my healing, and I already owned this gym, and that was traumatic in its own like external ways, but I knew that the method was something that I connected to because I did not prefer to go to classes at my own facility as much as I like to go in like in the middle of the day when no one was there.
Well, there's a lot of strings attached when you're there.
Yeah, and I would do my own routines, and I did routines that I never taught. They were the ones that I probably should have taught because they were more intuitive, they were more grounded, they were less like formulaic in terms of like biceps, triceps. Like it was a much more practical flow. And so when I was in my house and we're going through COVID and I'm doing all of this like super, super deep work and I'm trying to flip the script of my morning routine and creating these rituals for myself, I'm like, okay, I know that method better than almost anybody. So I can go to, and I knew the owner of this facility and I was like, I'm just going to sign up there like blind and I'm going to go every single morning, like not every single morning, but almost every single morning. And this is like my morning routine. And I have cried on the machines in there. I've had anxiety attacks on the machines in there. And like the only rule for me was like, and occasionally I have like limitations with my arm or I had like a time thing with work. But for the most part, it's like, no, like I'm going to show up no matter what. This isn't about output. This is about what I'm receiving.
Well, and I think when I'm hearing you talk and us talk about rituals in general too, it kind of goes back to one of our other previous podcasts about like your deep why. Like, why are you doing it? Are you doing it? Are you doing the ritual because you hate yourself and this is a way
Yeah.
to get skinny and then you'll get whatever? Or are you doing the ritual because you want the stability, you want the growth edge,
Yeah.
you want the flexibility, you want to be consistently showing up for yourself every morning, or you want
And
to
this,
try something new and be curious, or get trained in a new skill, or um, for me, like part of it is the community and just seeing familiar faces on a consistent basis. Like,
yeah.
why are you doing the rituals that you're doing? Why are you choosing the gym that you're choosing and the method that you're choosing? Part of
Yeah.
my exploration and getting back to Pure Barre was I was so stressed out. Like, I think like high cortisol is a really popular thing to talk about right now. I'm sure my cortisols were like off the charts. I was
Oh, yeah.
just so, so stressed. And I was searching for a physical outlet because I didn't think walking was enough, and I
Yeah.
was walking every day for like 2 miles, but that wasn't enough. So I was like, I'm going to do a kickboxing class because I thought, here I am, this fiery Aries. I've got a lot of pent up frustration, anger. I need to hit something.
Yeah.
So then I started going and I really did like it in the first couple sessions I did. But when I signed up, the schedule was so inconsistent that it was such an energetic wait to even decide what
Yeah.
pocket of time I was going to do that class that I added more stress. Then I was there. It's a very cortisol inducing practice. Like you're hitting a bunch of stuff, you're on a timer, your heart rate's on the monitor, you're competing with others. Like they're
Yeah.
encouraging the competition part of it. My perfectionism is like, oh shit, like
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not doing it right. And then, then I'm holding a plank for like a minute when I wasn't used to it. So I'm dying and then I'm getting shamed from the coach there. And I was like, Lord, I can't be doing this. I can't
No.
do this. I don't want to do it. I can't do it. It's making me even more stressed because of all
Yeah.
of those factors. And it's like, okay, I've got to find something that's a little more like calming. And when I went back to Pure Barre, I was like, oh, this is much more, if we're going to talk about like feminine, masculine type energy, not gender related, but just types of energy, if we want to assign that word to that. It was very much more balanced where we would have spurts of like, let's try to push
Yeah.
ourselves a little bit. Let's get our heart rate up a little bit. And also let's really lean into the stretching. Let's lean into the calming. Let's like really think about the grace in your arm and like reaching towards the back. That felt so much better to my
Yeah.
system that it helped my
Expansive.
energy. Yeah. It helped my energy really balance out. And it helped my anxiety instead of like amping it up.
Yeah. No, I mean, we could talk about this all day long because I've also like I've explored so many other methods and now it's just like to your point, like I wake up and I'm like, which thing
Yeah,
works
like
for me
what feels
today?
right today? Well, and another ritual that I really do love is the walking. Like, and also know that's a really popular thing right
It's
now
a
too. Is like,
universal.
just like the meditative, like boom, 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 one foot after another outside. I'll take my dogs now, but I used to go to the
Yeah.
park and like see water and hug a tree and like breathe the air and just, it feels accessible to a lot of people too, that you can.
But it's also universally, I mean, probably universally the most accessible where most people can get to a place where they can walk.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have the same sort of like bypassing feeling, at least
Hmm.
for me at this point, where like I can still feel anxiety rise up when I'm walking. I can still feel like I'll feel other things, but like occasionally in earlier years when I was running a lot more or I was doing HIIT, it was to get my mind off the thing that was
Mm.
bothering me.
Like a numbing.
Where I am now, and I don't run frequently. I do walk a lot more, but I am like dabbling a tad in running, mostly with Winston, is the like is for processing.
Well, and I get a lot of creative ideas on my walks too, especially in the season of winter where it's cold. Like a cold winter walk is some of my favorite things to do. Talk about ritual, like that getting out in my puffy coat, with or without the dogs, out in nature, breathing that cold air, it just ignites a lot of creative ideas. And
you also feel like you go somewhere else. Like we've spent a lot of time, I guess it was this fall, in the mountains, and in Western North Carolina, which we love. And there's not like a gym in the town where my home is. There's not, there's no franchises. It's very much like a local, really sweet, quaint, blue collar working culture. But there's national parks everywhere. And so nobody needs a gym because they're out mountain biking, they're hiking. And so we did a lot of that. And we started a little bit of a ritual where it was like, okay, like let's say 8 o'clock, roll out to like pick a trail, roll out to the trail. You spend an hour, an hour and a half,
newness
2
of that
hours.
Too. Like, ooh, let's pick a new trail today.
Well, because there's so many. And then like our little ritual is to like go to breakfast at like a couple of these little mountain town cafes and just take in the community, and we would meet people. And it was just such a break from being here and in Charlotte. I know tomorrow is Saturday, and tomorrow I will get up and I'm going to have an 8 a.m. class. I'm going to do this. And in the summer I will go to the farmer's market, and then I'm going to come home. And like, it's like this kind of hyper vigilant or hyper structured approach. And it's not that it's like that in my home once I get home, but it's like the traffic is that way. The schedules for the routine are that way. Like I'm participating in this community, and that means that I'm not going to have the same freedom that I have in other places, and I don't have the same access to nature. So it's just a really highly recommend more time in nature.
Oh, nature solves all my problems. I feel like if I can get out in nature, I can usually figure out whatever's got me tangled up, honestly. But thinking about throughout my day, like evening to wind down, I have a lot of like busy task rituals that I kind of just get through, if I'm honest. Like I try to make them fun, but honestly, it's just like chores. Like, okay, we just got to keep the ball rolling here. But then I try to go to bed with a meditation in my ear at night. And there's 1 p.m. meditation, and I'm blanking on the energy worker's name, but for some reason this hits all of my vibrations perfectly. The way she narrates it is like just so beautiful to release everything from the day, prepare for sleep, prepare your mind, body, spirit for like a rest. And it's not like I have beautiful night's sleep every single night. I mean, there's other factors, but it's such a beautiful bookend to the day. And it's the energy protection again. It's kind of like, okay, we were out all day, and so now we're going to cleanse, and we're going to balance, and we're going to reflect, and we're going to let go. And it's really nice as a meditation instructor to be held in the arms of another meditation instructor. Like I try not to listen to my own meditations or lead my own meditations when I'm doing that for my own care, because there's just too much ego stuff going on where it doesn't feel as balanced. It doesn't feel as like complete when I'm leading my own. So it feels really good to like fall asleep to that, honestly.
No, I totally get that. I also think when it's your own thing, it's not even just like an ego aspect. You're going to become self-critical, but also for me, if I'm repeating to other people and then saying to myself the same thing over and over, like eventually the track is going to get old.
Yeah.
And so taking in new information, new perspectives, new energy, I think is the only way, especially as a practitioner, to sustain yourself, which comes back to like the social media aspect of like, yeah, I get sustained by a lot of people's information on social media, but that's why I don't really follow like people's day-to-day very much. And I spent like a hot second on mental health TikTok. And then I was like, things I don't like or find authentic for me is like
TikTok mental health.
people constantly wanting, it was mostly like
Yeah.
people would put reels of themselves talking to hear themselves talking
Oh,
and for
yeah.
validation. And I'm like, it's so transparently obvious. I think I lasted on there for like a week and a half and I couldn't even scroll.
Yeah.
I just posted like 3 things and then was like, I'm going to check out. Because that's like social media is a really hard space for me to navigate in a way that doesn't make me feel ick.
Yeah.
And so I've kind of muted the folks who are behaving in ways where I'm like, oh my God, I hope you do your work. That makes me feel ick. I cannot watch this. And I take in from the people that I find like very nourishing, very grounded, like very much in their work. But from like a nighttime ritual perspective, I try not to scroll at night typically.
Oh, I definitely do.
I
That's
do a
part of it.
little
Like
bit.
before I put my meditation down, I'll do what I did in the morning too. Like
Yeah.
I'll send the obligatory like cat meme and like
Yeah.
motherhood memes, and then like maybe I'll repost a couple things. I'm like, good night, Instagram.
Well,
and
I'll
then
say this. I'm with you. Like, but if I replace that in the morning, I'll catch up at night.
yeah.
But my preferred way, and like this was like last night for me, I cook a lot. And for me, and this was not always a thing, but I think it was not a thing when I was in like a more dorsal state, when I was not feeling well, like my motivation was just not there. And it's not about a perfectionist thing. It's not about like appearing the best, but I need to clean the kitchen at night.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh,
so
yeah.
I like my method. I actually don't want people to help me because it interrupts the flow of how I process.
Well, and it's kind of your bookend of your night. It's like we
Yeah.
are complete. We are put away for
I'm
the
gonna
next day.
close. Yeah, we're gonna close this up nice
Yeah.
and neat, and then we're gonna welcome in with like no external anxieties
Mhm.
or jobs or responsibilities when I wake up in the morning. So my
We're
morning
done.
routine. But I will, load the dishwasher, do
Mhm.
any dishes that need to be done. It's the counter. I put things away. I make sure that like if there's stuff in the laundry, that's being handled. Like I like to methodically go through. It's the same way every morning. Maybe not right at start, but by midday, I have made the bed and like
Mhm.
I waste the time to put the pillows on and like karate chop them
Yeah.
because for me that's very welcoming at night and it's something that like attracts me into my like kind of like wind down routine
Right.
as opposed to me feeling like I'm just like walking through chaos all day.
Right.
And so those rituals are really important to me, and actually the process of planning food and cooking food, and I think I have in the last few years, like I always cooked, but like really gotten a lot deeper into it, really expanded what I cook.
Well, that's its own ritual, cooking. I mean, that could be its own thing, you know?
Totally. I was
Yeah.
talking to actually a coworker. We were doing our year end stuff, and he's probably 15 years older than me, and from a very different cultural background, and has also like a different life with like wife and kids that are like grown and bringing their own lives into the system. And he was like, oh no, that's my same routine. He's
Yeah.
like,
It's like
I
home
need to
base.
clean up every day. And
Yeah.
it's like, also, I think if you have kind of a stressful unknown type of a job in the middle of the day,
Mm.
it takes a lot and it puts a lot on you. And there's like so much information that you're taking in. Like I have meetings typically like every 30 minutes nonstop all day long.
You need
You
something to just
need
like
that.
mindlessly taking care of yourself and nurturing your
Yeah.
future self. Well, I feel like some of the themes, if you're exploring rituals yourself, like some of the themes to consider are why are you doing it? What influence you're under? We've talked about that.
Is it for
Because
you? Is it for others?
exactly, because the same ritual can feel and look a lot differently depending on what is motivating you to try it and do it.
Yeah.
Remaining curious about what might feel fun and what might not, opening your mind and heart to new gems, new perspectives, new ways to move your body, new ways to
New
receive
discomfort.
nourishment. Yeah, yeah. Willing to
Allow the
be
discomfort.
new, allow the discomfort, and then finding your rhythm to what feels really like enabling to you for your well-being. So if that's super consistent kind of
Yeah.
mindless meditative tasks, or cleaning up at night, or going to bed with a meditation that you can just
Yeah.
rest in, and talk about like bookending your day and whatever feels right to open and welcome what comes to the day, and close out what happened to the day so you can really embrace
Do you have
rest.
one thing, one intention or one routine, and this is where we can close out, like that you're looking to 2025 that you want to bring in?
Mm.
Or is there something you want to kick out?
Um, I don't know. I feel like I want to maybe bring some more organization around my tools.
Mhm.
I'm in a season of moving and packing and that kind of thing. And I've been going through a lot of my tool supplies, like
Yeah.
energetic cleansing tools and journals and books and poems and stones, crystals, like all that kind of stuff that help bring a lot of intention to my ritual containers. And I'd like to organize that to really enable me to grab what I need to grab and then leave what I need to leave and
Yeah.
enable my fluidity in the time blocking that I do use my ritual practices. So I think I want to bring more organization around that. And my intention with my rituals in 2025 would be to really stay in the intention of whatever I'm trying to do and bring more awareness to what I'm doing, why I'm doing, and always reevaluating why. Because, we talked about Pure Barre today, but maybe in 2025, like Pure Barre doesn't feel as nourishing
Yeah.
too. And allowing myself the openness to receive other tools, leave other tools, and not have that make it, any meaning around anything, I guess. How
Yeah.
about you?
No, I think that sounds awesome. I have spent a lot of time like trying to stay grounded and regulated and in my just higher self while this year like left a company I'd been at for a really long time, started a new job at a company that's net new to me, like constant new people, a lot of travel. And I think had I not had my own rituals and routines, that would have been horrible.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
really
think it would have
grounded you.
gone well. But now that I'm like in it, I can see like some phrase at the edge.
Yeah,
And I felt a little bit of like instability and a little bit of that like up and down.
like
And
a refreshing
so,
of your next, like you've up leveled to a certain degree, like a
yeah.
refreshing of your up level, new Val, like what rituals serve her at this level kind of a thing.
Yeah, and I think going into this year and also having like a little bit more of a roadmap of what at least geographical travel I'm going to have this year, a little bit more understanding of my routines, a lot more certainty in terms of where I am and where I'm going. I know, I mean, we've talked about this and this will have to come back. Like, I've outgrown this space just in myself, not the actual square footage of space. And so there's a lot that's been shifting, and I've been shifting through different real estate and trying to find that next environment because I feel this real drive and need to like ground and nest and build a place where I feel like I will be longer term than I
Hmm.
ever intended to be here because I think I'm arriving at sort of like my longer term like awareness of
Yeah.
self and a little bit more of a grounded space. And so what I would like to do is like give myself that time like I spoke earlier of like I just turned down an opportunity that wasn't like a job change. It was like a kind of like a recognition that was associated with the program. And I'm like, well, that's just not for me right now. That's just like a dream I've had for a really long time, but my energy is elsewhere. And so taking a moment to allow myself to like recalibrate. So I just finished taking another, large trauma focused exam for one of my credentials. And I feel this like, okay, that was good for academia and like academic thought this year. I now want to shift and I want to read more, aligned works, but I want to hear about different people's personal experiences and incorporate those perspectives into the clinical
Hmm.
because I don't get that a ton in that sort of coursework. So that's where I'm headed.
Yeah. Okay, well, happy ritual hunting, everyone. We hope that you have felt supported. I trust that you got something out of this. And please remember to join us in our circle community. If you do have questions after this or you want some more clarity around the tools that we've used and talked about here, don't forget about that circle community. And in the meantime, we'll meet you in the next one. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to Human Sessions. If you loved this episode, please make sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube, and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts so more people can join our Human Sessions. We'll see you in the next episode.